Using charcoal has always intimidated me. It looks so messy, so hard to use, and yet the results are so beautiful. So today, we're super fortunate to have Eric Armusik as our guest artist. He's going to demonstrate how he creates his incredibly beautiful charcoal portraits. He's going to explain his whole process to us, from picking a reference photo to breaking down the proportions of the face so you get an accurate drawing, what supplies to use, including paper, pencils, erasers, even brushes, the benefits of using an easel, and how to protect and store your drawing once you're finished. So without further ado, let's get into it. Amazing. Great. All right. So welcome to everybody who's here. I'm so happy everybody joined us, and I'm super excited to have Eric with us. Eric, Armusik. Armusik. Did I say that?
You got it.
Joining us all the way from where are you?
I'm in Hamburg, Pennsylvania, in the United States.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Amazing. And Eric is a classical oil painter, portrait artist, carpenter, restoration expert. What else?
Right. Dad and a husband and general lover of life.
Amazing. Amazing. And so I've been following Eric on LinkedIn mostly for years now. Really just every time he posts something, I feel like just a joy to see it, and such a variety of subjects, mostly portraits and religious art, right? I would say. So those are your two main.
I would say a great deal of them, yes.
Yeah. So today we're going to be focusing on charcoal portrait. The title of our meeting was Adding Drama to Your Portrait, or something like that. So just so we can get to know you for a little bit, you gave us a little background about your childhood, how you came to be an expert carpenter. Eric not only paints incredible paintings, but he also crafts these gorgeous, I don't know how you describe them, frames, but the frames are a work of art in themselves. They're really something to see. Everyone should check them out. So you came to that in an interesting way. And I'm curious to know how long you've been actually painting for. Was that also since you were a kid? Were you interested in art, or did that come later on?
Well, I did not get the chance to paint with oils until I was 20 years old. That was through college. I grew up just drawing like everybody else with number 2 pencil, just graphite art. Did a lot of that from the time I was very little. Well, it was probably crayons then when I was really small, but I was always sketching, always drawing. And in fact, I ruined probably most of the books that were on my bookshelf as a kid because I didn't have drawing paper. So I would always grab these books off the shelf, like encyclopedias and everything, and it'd have the first page that would be blank. So I would draw on all those pages because I thought they were for drawing because there was nothing there. So I ruined all these books over the years, drawing on all these blank pages. And but I was like any other kid. I was very curious. I had things that I liked, dinosaurs and spaceships and monsters and everything else you could think of when you're a kid, but it was really fantastic to get the chance in college to start getting some formal training. I didn't have any as a kid at all. So I ended up getting introduced to charcoal. I was probably about 17 when I first started working with it. I really liked it right away. I actually stopped drawing in graphite almost exclusively from that point. But then a couple of years later, I was about 20 years old, and I took my first painting class. And I think that just absolutely exposed me to everything. Because as a kid, I didn't even have any kind of exposure to art history or anything. So I was a child growing up in a coal mining town in North Pennsylvania, Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. So everything there was just an old mining town that was already kind of on the decline. Everything was closed up and rusty, and the industry had pretty much gone down and finished because they were just immigrant towns, a lot of Polish, Slavic people like my family. My great-grandfather pretty much died from the mines. My grandfather did the same. You know, both of them got black lung. So it was not a pretty place. There wasn't much culture or anything in that area. But what I did discover is that, you know, there were churches in this really ugly, you know, looking old town. But the churches were always beautiful inside. So when I would go to mass on the weekends, I would look around this church and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. There's paintings on the ceiling, on the walls, on the stained glass, the statues. So for me, that was kind of my art history lesson. I had no idea how that was even possible, until I ended up going to college and I started studying art history. I ended up minoring in art history. And then one of my last semesters, I had a chance to go to Italy to spend a whole semester in Italy and study as well. So I got to study art and art history and finish my minor there. And I think it just all clicked. I thought, wow, this was the kind of work I grew up with. It made sense to me. And it wasn't that I just set out to paint religious work. It's just that I had a connection to that, still being a practicing Catholic. But my appreciation for art, whether it was mythological or figurative work, nudes, portraits, whatever it was throughout art history, I was very fascinated by all of it. And I just wanted it. That's all I wanted to do. And so I kind of set out on that quest. Now, my college years weren't that very encouraging when it came to realism and you know, representational art. They were very modern, postmodern kind of curriculum at these schools. They even encouraged me, even made fun of me for even thinking I could go and do this kind of art. And they said, you never have a career if you decide to do this kind of art. And I kind of laugh now because last week is 30 years I've been in business as a professional, and it feels quite awesome to have achieved everything I have, sold as much art as I have, put my work all around the globe, and made great connections like with people like yourself, and especially the people I've been able to help over the years, the hundreds of students that I've worked with individually, teaching and doing workshops and mentorships. And even the apprentices, the three apprentices that I have in my own studio that I work with.
Yeah, and your daughter, right, is one of them.
One of them, yeah, one of them being my daughter.
Amazing.
Having the chance to guide, I think that's the best feeling at this point. It's like I've achieved a lot of really great things, and I love painting. I can't wait for the new challenges ahead. But being able to help people and see my apprentices and my students achieve more and more great things and learn and progress and do great work and be appreciated in their own right for what they do. I think at this point in my life, I'm really excited to continue pushing that and really leaving behind a good legacy of, you know, of stewardship and trying to help people out and make things much easier for them. You know,
I love that. Yeah, I love that. Adding beauty and just helping others is what artists are there for.
Yeah, it's a way to live life. It certainly is. It's something that gets me excited to get up in the morning. You know, I can't wait for Monday mornings. So many people are dread they dread the new day, and I'm like, you know, sometimes. But I mean, I'm after work some Sundays, but sometimes I don't, and I'm like, I can't wait to get back in the studio first thing in the morning, and I'll stay here all day if I could, you know.
Yeah,
but I try to be a good dad and a husband too, so I try to balance my life out. But it's everything I ever dreamed of and wanted from the beginning when I set out to do this, and left my job years ago, you know, 20 years ago. It feels just fantastic to, you know, have your own life to dictate what you want, and I try to give that to others because there's nothing better than it. It certainly is.
Incredibly inspiring. And maybe we'll get you back again and we could talk about more the business side of it and just how because that's really fascinating to me and probably to others who are looking to make a career or become a professional artist. But okay, so we'll put that in our future somewhere. Okay, so I'll keep an eye on the chat. If we get a question coming in, I'll let you know. And also, would you mind giving us a quick overview on what materials that you usually use in your charcoal art?
Sure.
And I'm also curious to know how you protect it or store it or ship it, because that's what intimidates me about using charcoal. It just seems, I used it when I was a kid, but not really much since then, because I always had the impression that it's so messy and so easily smudged. I don't know. So
Right.
I'd love to know about that.
Everybody gets really worried about that. That's the funny part, is that charcoal's always seen as this like medium that's so out of control, and it can be. It's kind of interested in it can be moved around as you put it on there. I'll show you how to manipulate things, but you can certainly arrest it to any surface with a good fixative. There's
Okay.
a couple fixatives that I've used. They're in the other room, unfortunately, here. But I've used Grumbacher has a nice one. The I've heard a lot of people, and I get this question a lot from people, like, do you use fixative in the middle of the process? So
Uh-huh.
say if you wanted to work on half of a face and then you sprayed fixative on it so that you didn't smudge it, and then you work to the other side.
Okay.
Yeah, you can, but in my own personal feelings about that is I don't like to use fixative until the very end. I like
Okay.
to spray it on when it's done. That protects it from being smudged and any of those other problems. What I look at it is there's some fixatives you can work into. I think Grumbacher actually does make one, and it gives you the ability to work into it. I don't have any experience with that because it's not part of my process. If I need to erase things, I like to have full access to the charcoal from the beginning to the end. I don't
Right.
like to have anything that's keeping me from it. I recently just had to fix a portrait that I did around the Christmas time, and I just had to make some alterations to it. It's one of the few times I've actually worked into my piece after I sprayed fixative, and I was able to, but it was very hard.
Mhm.
And it kind of gave me limited options. So that's why I wait until the end. Some kind of process things that I think help is number one. Years ago, I switched to using an easel to do my charcoal work instead of doing it on a table, where you're going to put your hands in it and everything else. Now, if you're a person that likes a table, that's fine. I'm not saying that there's only one way to do something. But in that case, I'll usually put a piece of paper. I'll usually get a bunch of printer paper or something junky I can throw away, and I'll just set it on that area, and then I'll put my hand on there to draw if I had to. Sometimes I'll do that if it's a very intricate drawing that involves like a lot of, they say it's architecture or something where I've got to do a lot of, ruler work or something. But for the most part, I think that working on an easel helps because everything's you're a little bit more away from it. And then second of all, just like my painted work, my drawing work, I like to work left to right. If you're right-handed, that is. If
Oh,
you're left-handed, it would obviously be the opposite way. Because if you're working left to right, your hands aren't going to be in something. You're going to be working in an area that doesn't have any charcoal or anything on it
oh,
already. So your chance of getting a lot more paint or charcoal or anything on here is going to be less. So even when you'll see my portraits and everything that I'll post online, even processes, you always see I'm working left to right,
mm,
and that really helps. Like you can kind of like I'm going to do here, just put the very beginning here. You're going to put the framework of the drawing together. That's totally fine. But once you actually start putting tone together, I would definitely recommend that. That definitely helps. So it's
okay.
those three things that I think have worked very well for me. I've done some really intricate work, some very large charcoal pieces as well. I do them on a regular basis, and it seems to work out very well. So
Okay.
um,
Amazing.
I hope that helps. Hope that
Yeah.
helps.
Yeah. Fantastic. All right. And what kind of paper do you usually work on?
Yeah, I'll show you right now. I have this is I use Canson,
Okay.
and this is a multimedia paper, or I'm sorry, a mixed media paper,
Mm-hmm.
and it is 98 pound. And I like it because it's very bleach white. I use Strathmore, but I think they're a little too creamy. Um, as far as a tone of white, it's not as like a bleach white like this is. And I think my two reasons I like it is one, that it is bleach white. So then when I do my erasing and stuff into my work, the tone has a much higher range that you can
Mm-hmm.
go into the light areas. Whereas, when I draw on it's almost like drawing on a toned paper when you draw on Strathmore and stuff like that. A similar paper for what's the other Fabriano, I think it's Fabriano, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They're pretty good too, but I like this has a little bit less texture
Okay.
than that paper, and I like that it's super strong. Like it is, you could really put a lot of effort. I might put a lot of muscle into the work a lot of times trying to blend and stuff, And it's only been a few times I've really pushed into the paper too much with a lot of repetitious work. But
Amazing.
it's a great paper. It's not it's not too smooth. It has a texture to it, but it's enough texture, I think, that holds the charcoal really well. So,
Perfect. Okay, good. Awesome. All right.
and lastly, the charcoals that I'm using today is something I switched to about I think it was about 4 years ago. This is I don't know if you can see it, but these are Marie's charcoal pencils.
Mhm.
I think they're really a fantastic pencil, especially if you're somebody who likes graphite, because it kind of has that what's the word I call it, like shininess or something like that. Like I always look at, if you go really dark with a graphite, you kind of get that
That shine.
shiny kind of, yeah. Whereas charcoal is very dust, very a lot more powdery. This is kind of in between the two. Like
Mhm.
it doesn't have quite as much powder as, say, another brand like Generals or something like that. But what it does have, it has an incredible range of color. Like the neutral pencil, which they consider that, I guess, the hard pencil, is really great for sketching. Like it's not a, if you've ever sketched with a charcoal pencil that's a hard one, sometimes it skips, sometimes it
Oh,
scrapes the paper, very irregular. That's a big problem I have with General's pencils. They're great pencils, but the hard pencils always have that problem. I literally have to test them before I buy them sometimes. But this is a very fluid pencil, draws really well, has a great range of tone. And by the time you go from neutral, which would be a hard pencil, to their next pencil, which would be a soft pencil, which would be a medium in, say, a General's pencil. This is really, like, this goes from medium to soft to even extra soft. And then they have an extra soft on top of it that goes, like, this goes to black. I mean,
mhm.
really black. So if you're really looking for a brand that like gets a super amount of yeah, John, it's called Marie's, Marie apostrophe S. And if anybody's looking to reference it, my exact palette that I'm looking is on Jerry's Artarama. I don't know if everybody has ever shopped there, but Jerry's Artarama is a place, an art store that I've been working with. Well, I've been ordering from for 30 years. But I partnered with them about 10 years back or so. A fantastic company. But they have a kit that I have for my drawing work and my painting work on there. So it has my exact list of things that I use, things that I'm using right now on this call. And they sell these pencils, and I will say they really changed my way of drawing a lot, to a really great degree. I think they're just a fabulous pencil and definitely worth trying.
Amazing. All right. Much less intimidating than those charcoal sticks that we used to use. I don't know
Oh
why.
yeah, I did that a lot. Yeah, I used to press charcoal all through college, and
Yeah.
yeah, it was, yeah, that was the definition of messy for sure.
Yeah, maybe that's why
For
I
sure.
have those memories.
Yep.
All right, yeah, I'll
Yep.
have to try those out. That looks amazing. Yeah, thank
Cool. Cool. Yep.
you. All right.
Okay. Well, if we're good here, then maybe I'll switch my camera over and
Amazing.
here, let's make sure I got a decent view here, because I think I adjusted my.
Even your reference photo looks very religious. Did you pick it on
Yeah.
purpose for that reason?
You know what? It's one of those wild things. I did drew this with one of my students a few years ago, and I'm going through my stuff quickly yesterday or the day before. I'm like, oh, I got to find something kind of on the dramatic side. So I think, well, maybe we'll do this. We'll do a simple portrait here, and so what I want to do today, more than anything, and by drama, I want to pick a subject that kind of had an interesting, an emotional kind of dramatic look to the character, but had a nice dramatic amount of tonal difference as
Yeah,
well, so that we could really kind of show what these pencils are capable of. So,
love it.
so what I'll do is I'll kind of draw it and kind of sketch out a framework to everything here, and then get into maybe focusing on one area a little bit more than some of the other whole piece, because we'll only have about an hour
Yeah.
or
How
so
long
here.
would something like this take you, as if it was a real drawing you were working on?
To draw it, if I was doing this for a client or something like that,
Yeah.
I would say probably about 4, 5, 6 hours, maybe
Yeah.
something
Okay.
around there. I
All
wouldn't.
right.
I
So we're
wouldn't.
gonna get the abridged
limit it.
version.
Yeah, yeah, it's going to be a little bit more of a, just focusing on some smaller parts to it, and we'll see how
Okay.
that all comes together. All right.
Amazing. Fantastic.
All right. All right. I'm just going to I'm just try to keep him, seeing as we're in this format here. I'm just going to make sure I'm keeping my stuff right in this area. Okay. So I like kind of using a Loomis method sometimes for starting out some of my portraits. I can free draw it as well, but I like to have a little bit of a reference point here. And all I'm using is just anything that would be circular, just a roll of tape here to start. If anybody hasn't used the Loomis method before for drawing either a front portrait, side portrait, or a 3/4 portrait, it's a great method to get kind of a simple format that we can start with in the face. So in this case here, I'm going to start with a circle for a front-facing portrait. And what I'm going to try to do is find a circle inside it that's 2/3 of the size of this circle here. And the way to do that is going to be to break it down here into first of all, 1/2 of the size. Okay, so all I did was just put a line down right down the center, and I'm starting out using a graphite pencil, usually and a 2H or something like that, something that's not going to be too permanent, because I like to erase everything when I'm finished here. And just from my standpoint here, so I have a good lineup for the face, I like to have a line going down the center so I can kind of keep him ordered right from the center. Okay. So when I get this, I draw this half line going up and down here and side to side. What I like to do here, you can do it just without even a ruler or anything, just by eye, is to break each section here, each part of this half, breaking it down into thirds. So I will put 2 lines and just kind of eyeball it. So you have 1/3, 2/3, 3/3. And I'll do the same thing on the bottom one here. And by doing so, if you were to count these out, you'd have 6 actually. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's either it'd be 4/6 or 2/3. It's the same number. Okay, so we're looking to count out just these middle 4 right here that will represent 2/3 of that circle. Okay. And what that magic number of 2/3 does is that gives us proportions. Okay. This is the kind of magical way of looking at a human's face, is to break them down into 2/3 here. So what I'm going to do here is on the top of this third here and the bottom part, I'm establishing this as my first 1/3 and my second, or I should say 1/3 here. Okay. And this is going to correspond now to the face. So you can look at the hairline of this man to the brow of this man as being this first third. So we would call this the hairline, and then the brow in this formula. And the next third is going to be the bottom of the nostrils, not the tip of the nose, but the bottom of the nostrils where they connect with the face. Okay. So we will say the nose is for this one here. So if I'd be drawing him right now, I would put this as my nose, and I would put this as my brow. Now you might notice here we're running out of space here, and we obviously still have stuff below the nose, right? So we've by just calculations here, we figured out that this is a third, this is a third. We need a third here to get through the bottom. And all we're going to do is going to estimate the same amount of distance to make ourselves another line here. And we're going to call this line the chin. Okay. So if you look kind of closely, you can already see there's kind of a human here. If you think about this as being the chin, this as being the nose, you start seeing his personality starting to be seen here. Okay. So we can go into this as a piece next here and start to draw him in a little bit. And where I like to focus most on is going to be the eyes and nose area first. And just looking at the nose here, and I'm using an iPad, which is, I think, a fantastic tool for artists. Doesn't matter if you're drawing or painting or anything. I use an iPad for everything these days because it's so much, easier to use. You can zoom into things, and you could do, especially what I'm doing right here, is to draw lines essentially without having to draw them, where I could see where the edge of his nose is, where that connects with the eye. And likewise on this side, the edge of his nose and how it connects with the eye up here in the tear duct area. And essentially what they say is your typical thing, and it changes from person to person, is you can usually fit an eye in between your eyes. So if I was to just draw, quickly a eye here, just drawing diamonds instead of a real eye shape at this point. Oops, and I'm drawing it right in my eyebrows, not paying attention here. So I would draw an eye here, and then that would give me the ability to use that as a means to draw my eyes because I would have that correct space. Now, you can likewise, like we just did here too, is to go straight up from that nostril and you get the same result. Okay, it's usually the nostrils going up to the tear duct of the eye gives you that space. Is that the same for everybody? No. Even him, his eyes are a little bit in closer than it is typical. There's people that with wider eyes. Matter of fact, I used one of my priests a few years back as a model for painting, and his eyes were even more wide out and had a much wider head. So, this is kind of a framework. Like, use this as a means to lay something out, and then look at your subject matter and say, is this conforming to what I'm looking at? Some people have smaller foreheads. Some people have longer noses. Some people have shorter chins or longer chins. This is a means to get started and start creating your design, but alter it in order to be able to get it the way it should look, like your subject matter is. And I'll usually do that alteration at this point with the pencil so that I don't have to worry about erasing and everything else later. So here we have his eyes here, and as you can see, I didn't make any kind of notion about it, but my eyebrows are here. I just dropped the eyes just slightly down below there, so that I would have a little bit of space here between the eyebrow and the eye. You may hear a lot of times that artists will say the eyes are in the middle of the face. Okay. And that's actually not a true assessment. The eyes are in the center of the entire skull. So in this person's face, if you look at his eyes, if I put a pencil right between the eyes here, and even though he's got a beard here and you can't tell where the chin is, you can tell that the eyes are certainly up a little bit in his face. It's not the face, it's the skull that they're the center of. His skull continues up into his hair, which we don't see. But in this model here, our skull continues up because our circle is continuing as that cranium would past the hairline, which is here. So this, if we were to take this down to this, being the chin, the top of the cranium there, between this and this, gets the middle of it being our eyes. So that's another way to line that up so that you have it. Um, and sometimes, you'll find too, even in this circle here that comes through here from before, usually this is a good way to kind of line the lips up. It usually ends up somewhere in the middle here, where the lips kind of end up in this spot. But in this case here, a lot of his lips and everything are obstructed because of his beard. So that presents a lot of problems for some people. For me, I try to use that as an advantage because instead of trying to find your chin and everything else, which is hard to find, and the edges of his jaw and everything else. I like to play into that and just accept that he's got a beard. We're going to draw the beard and use it as a drawing tool. So I am just going to quickly go through here and erase some of the lines here so it doesn't make so much of a mess. And what you might notice also too here is I'm not looking for the edges of his face right away. I literally start from the middle and work my way out. All that matters right now is that I have a good educated guess to how everything is lined up, because I do have some measurements here, and I could go side to side and scale everything to make sure he's correct. I will do that to a certain degree. But at this point, I'm looking to wrap the face, the edge of the face, around the details in here. So, and that'll be very easy based on the fact that we've got, as I said, a beard and hair and everything else. So, one other thing I also want to make mention of is obviously I did not focus on the ears at this point. And that is something that we can also do based on this, is we can see easily if we go straight across here from his eyes, we can use that as a measuring tool to see that the tip of his ear is right at the height of the eyes. And it's hard to see where his ear ends, but usually it tends to be at the bottom of the nostrils. A lot of times you'll hear in this 1/3 model that the eyebrows usually tend to be the tip of the ears, and the nose tends to be the bottom of your ears. That certainly is about when you're looking at somebody, and I'll have to switch over here. If you're looking at me and I'm sitting, with this tilt of my head, and I go straight across here from my eyebrows, yes, everything is lining up, okay? But if I go like this, well, my ear just went way down. So this is showing the tilt of the head. The tilt of the head is going to be somewhere right here at the edge of our ear. So the head's going to tilt from this direction. So if my head goes up, my ears go down. If my head goes down, my ears go up. So that's kind of it. That's what, when I was searching for a model to use here, I'm looking for somebody that's looking pretty closely directly at us without much tilt in the face, because the more tilt you get, the more distortions you get with that 1/3 model. If I tilt my head back, and you're measuring 1/3 here, and then all of a sudden my nose is supposed to be 1/3 of it. But if my head goes back, my nose is all of a sudden near where my eyes are. So you get those distortions based on that situation. So this is a good way to be able to assess that. And I'll just put, since we don't see his ear on the other side, I'm just going to put a little tick mark here and just say that, and I'm going to just put a rough idea where the edge of his face is, because there's not much of his face left here in this temple area after his eye. And I'll just say it's going to be somewhere in here. And I like to draw everything very in a lot of angles in the beginning. I think it's much better to draw in angles because you can scale things better. And two, especially with a male portrait like this, men like this are going to have a lot more face. Their face is going to be a lot more, there'll be more bone, there'll be more angles. He's going to have a lot more musculature and things like that. So if you start rounding things off too early, you're going to end up with a person that doesn't have much personality. And that's another aspect of this I really like. He's very, very boxy looking. So what I will do here, now that I have my ear, is I will start going through and doing exactly what I was just saying about putting things more angular and trying to box him in here and figure out his edges based on what I have drawn so far. And I just box out even his facial hair, the mustache area here. And I'm not focusing on like every hair and everything else at this point. I'm focusing on being very, very general, trying to find out large shapes, um, and getting that personality. Because at this point, we're going to make changes, and I want to make sure that I'm not putting complete stock into this drawing until I feel happy with the way the proportions are looking. And even with the hair up here, I like to do it in a very angular way. Long hair, short hair, doesn't matter. I like to keep it very angular until I'm happy with it. And his neck is kind of lined up, going straight down, kind of spills right into it here at the side of his jaw, which is great. And let's say that. Okay. And now I'll just kind of roughly get in his eyes in some kind of shape here. Again, very, very angular in certain spots. Eyes are something, with a lot of my students, we do a lot of in-depth drawing and stuff of different features. But the big thing is a quick takeaway here for eyes is to never think of them as just round. Don't draw your eyes like this, where it's just a lemon shape or almond, whatever people want to call this. Um, you'll see a lot of people draw ideal things like that, but in many ways, the model where I'll draw, three angles on top and two on the bottom is probably more accurate how most eyes are going to be, because just looking at his eye on the top here, I mean, it's very angular. He's got very, very straight. It's straight at this point. There's some curves here and there in it. But you want to make sure you get this kind of balance of curves and angles in your eyes, and you'll get all that personality. And again, it's a generality. Not everybody has very, very angular eyes. Some people have very cupped eyes and, large eyelids, small eyelids. Um, but just kind of look at them with some scrutiny, where you're trying to find out, how much angle they do have. And there's no real reference here as to where his eyeballs will be. But I've noticed a lot of times, I usually try to focus if I take the inside of his iris and go straight down. It usually ends up with the edge of the mouth. So that's another thing to kind of, when someone's looking straight at you, and you're trying to get a reference to where that ends, that's usually a really great place. It'll go straight to the edge of his mouth. But as I said, his mouth is completely obscured, so a little hard to see that. But when I'm drawing here, I'm looking to see, if I was to focus just on what's left of the face that doesn't have hair on it, what kind of shape does that make? So I'm looking here and making alterations. Maybe it's a little further over. I'd like to kind of, make my eyes work a little harder, whether it's, say, even for instance here, with just if I was drawing the background of this, I would ask myself, what is this angle of his shoulder and all of his head look like if I was just looking at this white shape here, and trying to draw this white shape, what would that shape look like? Sometimes if you invert your way of drawing to not the subject but the background, you can replicate things a lot easier because you're like, I'm just trying to make that triangle look right. And if you do, you end up fixing the drawing the way you want it. So just another way you just constantly trying to trick yourself, keep yourself from being too fixed on a drawing. Because at this point, I haven't really done anything that I even care to keep if I didn't like it. I could throw this away tomorrow or today and not be worried about it. And that's a good thing. Sometimes when people start a drawing, they get too involved. Like, say they'll start here and they'll just make this eye absolutely perfect. And then they go over here and then they mess the proportions of this up and stuff. And then they go, well, I did this eye so good. I don't know if I could do it again. So even though this is wrong, I'm going to make a finished drawing and I'm going to be unhappy about it because I know that it's messed up. But I was so invested in finishing a little spot first, So it's good to kind of go at this and spend a little extra time and just sketch. Everything I've done here I could erase. I'm not invested in any of that, so I'm not afraid of, making big changes in order to make this right. Okay. Now I'm gonna move into doing some charcoal now, just erase some of these guidelines. And can I work in this hard pencil first? Um, yeah, or I should say it's called the neutral pencil. This is what they call their hard pencil. Um, yes, I can sketch and I could erase to a pretty good degree with this. So it's not a bad pencil to sketch with. I really actually enjoy it myself. I've done some of my best sketching with this pencil since I've started using these. I just like to use graphite to start, but I don't like to get any more put any more tone down than this because charcoal and graphite don't play too well together. There's just a little bit of that slipperiness of the graphite versus that. Um, it's just a lot better to just start as we're getting into starting to lay in tone here. All right, so I am going to start putting some tone in here. And I like to sharpen my pencil. I usually use an electric pencil sharpener, which I think works really well with these. But the brand that I used to use, which my pencil sharpener just stopped working, has not been the best lately. I don't know the new model. I didn't care for it's breaking my points too much. So even if you're using just a regular pencil sharpener, that's fine. If you want to be the kind of person that sharpens your own pencils and sands them down and stuff, that's great too. I just don't have the time for that kind of stuff. My schedule moves so fast. I've got to produce so much work for my clients and things like that that I either use a pencil sharpener or I use a handheld to be able to do that. And the result's pretty great. And it gets a really pretty large point on these pencils because they are just, and these are not wood, these are paper wrapped. But it's wrapped very compressed wise, so it doesn't really, peel away or anything like that. It's a really nice pencil altogether. Um, but what I'll do is I will start applying charcoal onto my piece in a manner that you can see the way that I'm holding my pencil here. I'm not holding it with a writing grip like we would do when we're writing notes out to each other or something. This would be more of a detailed kind of grip on my pencil. Um, Even if I'm sitting at a table and working, I like to use more like a tripod hold to my pencil. This way, it's not a tight grip. You can see my pencil can bounce around a lot. It's really just enough so that I'm using the weight of the pencil sometimes to draw with, unless I'm trying to put down more pressure. I'm trying to make it darker. But when I'm doing light tones and stuff like that, it's really just kind of letting the pencil be its own pressure based on its weight. And another thing I don't do is, especially on a paper like this, if anybody has experience with papers, you'll know that you think about charcoal, think about it, charcoal paper. Think about it and on a microscopic level as almost like a rug, okay? And so if we're looking at it as a cross section, it's kind of like this. This would be the tooth of the piece, you know, like we would do when we are kids and we're doing texture drawings and stuff where we're laying our pencil right on the edge there and trying to get the texture. Well, the paper has all the texture. If you're using your pencil like this and going on the edge of this tooth, your charcoal is going to be on the top here. It's going to be on the top here. It's going to be on the top here. And you're going to see all these gaps are not accepting any charcoal because all the stuff is up here. That's what's happening when you look at this. You're seeing all the top ridges of your paper are getting hit, and you're not seeing anything in these low ridges because you're putting your pencil flat. It's literally only hitting the tops. And that's why I always say to my students to, instead of working like that, work so that your pencil is at a better angle. You're kind of a little bit up, and your point is now working like this. You're just hitting the point of it. So while you're hitting the tops again, you're getting a little bit of charcoal in these grooves. Okay. So each time they're hitting and they're getting a little charcoal in these grooves. So that when you blend and stuff, you're pushing more charcoal in these grooves, and then all of a sudden everything has more of an even look than this. So that's what you'll see me do here. I'm just gonna quickly go through here. And I like to cross hatch. I forgot, I did want to make a little alteration with his nose a little bit. As I said, I wanted to make some alterations to his face. His forehead was a little bit lower, so I'm just going to lower the nose just a little bit. Um, but I'm just putting charcoal down very, very lightly, and I like to put it in multiple directions here. Don't just put down one direction and then blend it, because everything's going to look like lines. You just do this and you go to blend something, with a brush or something like that, and you're still seeing lines. The way to eliminate that is to crosshatch, go in opposite directions. Sometimes I like to go diagonal, side to side, up and down, the other diagonal. You can almost make a snowflake pattern with all the directions that you can go that will help. And then when you blend, everything will be a lot more fluid. Because you really want to eliminate, texture. You want to eliminate the pencil marks and everything else while you're working. And that's not to say that, some of you may want to have some texture in your work. That's great. That's totally great. As students, I work with a lot of different people. I'm not just working with academic people. I'm working with a lot of people who come from a lot of different disciplines. And I'm never out to make somebody like me. Even my own daughter has her own personality. And I really work hard to bring that personality out in a really great way, kind of amplify the work that they're doing. So if you're the kind of artist that likes a little texture in your work, use some of the things I'm doing here, but then you could see the other opportunities to add more texture there, going into it. This is just showing you good ways to fill things in and build a better drawing. And I'm starting, I didn't make mention of this in the beginning. I'm starting using my neutral pencil for everything in the very beginning. You don't see me bring anything else out that's any darker. I like to start light and start to build all of my tones up from there. And that way, you know, you don't end up with a drawing that gets out of control. That's another thing people complain about charcoal, is that it's so out of control. I can't, you know, everything went super dark on me and I wasn't prepared for it, and now I can't erase it and everything else. Yeah, when you get to soft charcoal and stuff like that, it becomes a lot harder to erase. There's certain things you can do, but it still becomes pretty difficult to erase heavier charcoal on there. So that's why we start off light and just gradually build everything up. And when it comes to hair, I don't focus on any texture right away. And you shouldn't either. A lot of people start drawing, like, you know, the actual strands of hair in the beginning. This hair is, it's for the most part, with the exception where it gets lighter down here, is fairly dark. You might have areas up here that are in the 20% or so, but you've got 100% darkness in a lot of other areas here. So to kind of start building this up, focus more on the overall tone of everything first, in generalities, that is, and then work on your texture. So I am just going to shade this in regardless of direction or anything else first. And I'm speeding my process up, of course. I would spend a lot more time here doing this, but I want to be able to get some areas worked on here today for you. So I will move on to doing a little bit of more hair here. I'm going to switch over to a soft pencil now from using the neutral pencil. And you'll see right away there's a nice difference in tone. And I'm going to stick mostly in the darker areas here.
I'm just going to jump in a second and remind people that if anybody has questions throughout the process, you're welcome to ask. You can unmute yourself and ask, or put it in the chat, and I'm keeping an eye on it. So I'll tell Eric if there's any questions that come up. So yeah, anyway, but it's really amazing to watch this come together. So thank you. And we're getting some good,
awesome,
just some compliments in the chat, but no questions yet.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, don't hesitate to ask. I don't hold back. I'm very happy to share what I'm doing here.
Amazing. Thank you.
Yep. And even with the beard here, like, it's not something that I cared to draw all the hairs in right away. What we need to do first is build this math of tone first. And I think so that we stay on schedule here, I'm probably gonna not worry so much about all the hair and stuff, but maybe get into doing some detail in here, and maybe this eye we'll spend a little time doing a little bit more in detail here, so that I have some time to actually get into some finish work. And like always, like, even once you get your proportions down and stuff, you know, when you're looking at things like his eye, what kind of shape does this make? You could test your angle. I like to use my pencil a lot to be able to test my angles. Um, but I'll look and see, what kind of shape does this little boxy area make? What kind of shape does this make? My mind's constantly trying to break things down a little bit so that, once we have our large areas figured out, then we start kind of dialing it down to that eye, that nose, where you're going to spend a lot more time and you're going to have a longer amount of work in those areas. So I would say, like, even with my paintings and stuff, uh, I'm not the kind of painter that's, everything has to be perfect in the very beginning and my underpainting and everything. So that I paint this perfect underpainting and then the next layer I go right over top of it and paint over the darn thing. I don't see the point in absolute perfection in the beginning because a lot of times you're going to cover things over. And that is with painting. And even with drawing, like I don't have a perfect sketch here, and of course I'm trying to move a little faster here so that I can get some things done for you guys, and it'll benefit our time together. But I tend to work this fast, even with my own work. Just try to if it looks mostly right, I have a pretty good feeling about it. I'm correcting along the way. I like to make corrections as I go.
So I have a question. First of all, it's beautiful, but
Sure.
I have struggled with when I try to do paintings, and I see that he has like those white hairs on top of the black hairs, like those white
Yes.
eyelashes and stuff like that, and those
Like
white
these here.
things. Yeah.
Hmm.
So how
Sure.
do you really work that through in drawings to kind of show those?
Sure. I'm definitely going to show that to you. That's exactly what I'd like to. I'd like to kind of work in maybe this area here for you to be able to give you some of that. But it's exactly by using this process first, is trying to get the mass of everything in here first. And then we work on more of a subtractive process to kind of bring it out. So I'll definitely show you how I go about that step by step here. But that's definitely a great question because I've actually run into some students in the past, some of my younger students. I've had other art teachers, and they're like, "We don't use erasers; they're for mistakes only." And I use an eraser just as much as I do a pencil. I mean, I really use a lot of eraser work in my work, and I'll give you an assessment of that right now because I'm actually gonna start some blending here really quick, and that will follow up with some of the eraser work. So thanks for that question. It's a very good one. I hope to answer it very nicely for you here. All right, so really quick before I get to the erasing part, there's a couple ways I like to blend charcoal. Um, a lot of people use their fingers. That's fine. You can do that. The only thing I don't like about it is that we have oils on our fingers, which is not good for sometimes you're blending things. You might make a certain area a little bit more blended than another one based on if there's oil on your hands. So that's one thing I don't particularly like. Some people use Q-tips. That's an okay way of using it as well. And I don't have any of these paper tortillions that people use, or rolled pieces of paper to blend. I don't particularly like those either because it's kind of a spiral. If you've ever seen one of those, they're just rolled up pieces of paper. And when you hold them on their sides, there's kind of a ribbing because the paper's all spiraled together. So they're good for like pointy kind of areas and stuff, but not for like big blending areas. What I like to use first and foremost is a regular cotton rag. Like this would be your typical dish rag. I just rip them into little pieces, and I have some that are very dirty, some that are light. But I like to take them and I could either wrap them around my finger or I could just make them into a little folded area. And you can get in here quite easily and blend your work. Now, I like to use this for light areas. I would say anything like 40 to 50% and lighter, which is not going to be this darker area that we have here, which is going to be a lot more darker tone on there. So I'm going to want to just keep the rag for that kind of work. With the beard work here, I have another method that I like to use that's more reliant on brush work. And I'll have a bunch of different brushes. You can see some of them are more beat up than others. These are just acrylic brushes, a couple of them. This is a badger hair brush, one of my old paint brushes sometimes. These two brushes used to be exactly the same. So you can see this is what it used to look like. This is what it wore down to from all the pressure. So it's good to have some stuff for soft stuff. It's good to have some harder brushes in this case so that I can really get in here.
A question somebody put in the chat. Does reusing the used rags bring more charcoal back in?
That is a great question. There's actually two ways that I tend to look at it is if I'm dealing with an area that's very light, I like a very clean rag. Something that doesn't have much charcoal on it at all. I'll look for a clean area to work with. But say if there's a darker area, say like maybe above his eye, I'll use a darker rag because it's already a darker tone and it won't take as much away as say my white rag will. The difference here between a brush is always going to just blend the charcoal that you have on there. A rag actually has two functions to it. One, it's a blending function, but two, it's also an erasing function. So if I put this rag on this area here and I try to blend it, see how it started taking that away. So I don't like to have a clean rag on it. As I said in the beginning, try not to use a rag on anything more than 50% darkness because it's going to do this. It's going to take it away. But if I'm dealing with something around that threshold of 40%, 50%, I'll use a dark rag to get that feeling, or I'll use it right on the edge here so that this is a little more soft. So it does have a purpose. Both of them do. I have multiple different rags I'm working with. Some are darker, some are lighter, some are brand new. Anytime my wife has rags in the kitchen that are no longer holding up anymore, they start to fray, I usually get her rags. So okay, so and I'll pull in a little bit more here if that's okay. Someone asked a question about getting some light stuff in say their eyes or something like that. Let me just get some detail on here first. And I've heard a lot of people too. Some people will, even in academics and stuff, will say, "Oh, don't blend anything until the very end or anything like that." I think a combination of blending and texture from your work and erasing and stuff truly gets the personality of a person. Just like you wouldn't use the same brush to paint a landscape. You're painting the floor, the flowers, the grass, the mountains, the trees. Like there's different textures for everything. So nature in itself and human beings are built on many different textures. So don't use the same tool, don't use the same blending for everything. And combinations sometimes of different textures really help. And I'm using right now first a little kneaded eraser. Okay, these are the gummy erasers. And sometimes I'll just take them and make a little point. And this becomes a nice little eraser for picking up little areas that I'm looking to get a little highlights in. But now trying to get those little hairs on the, let's see here, go back to here. these little hairs on the eye and the that we were talking about earlier. There's a couple different ways to erase you could use. I love these little pencil tops they have for kids in grade school and stuff. These are really great. They're nice, like very, very sharp and like a sliver kind of feel to them. And I also use these Tombow erasers. These are great too. There's another, I forget who makes this one. This is another version. I tend to like to use these as well. But you can use this to start pulling out the darker highlights. And then you can grab these tight ones with that pencil or that Tombow eraser. And then you can use your charcoal to kind of go back into them and accent them. And unfortunately, I don't have my electric eraser. I have an electric eraser as well that I'll use to really pull some stuff out. So it'll get that even more intense contrast. I apologize for that. I just realized I didn't bring it here. The name of the website.
The electric eraser erases really tiny areas, or is it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. It's fantastic, actually. I wonder if I could just text really quick here and have my son grab it for me, because it would be worth our time here. Give me 1 second here.
Yeah, of course. And someone said the website that you buy your materials from is Jerry's Artarama, right? Was that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Let's see. Yeah, if you guys don't mind, it'll take me 1 minute to grab it.
No, go for it. No, go for it. No
Yeah.
problem. We'll
All
chat
right,
amongst
excuse me 1 second.
ourselves.
That's good. That's good. Come up with a question.
I'm looking up this Jerry's Artarama because I think he said he has his own. Here it is. Nope, that's his oil painting set. Let's see. Charcoal drawing. I'm going to put it in the chat. Hold on a sec. Okay, somebody asked about his materials. So in the chat, I put the link. I just looked it up. You can get all the supplies that he uses for his charcoal drawings at that link there. If anybody's got questions, don't hesitate to put it in the chat or just let us know. And I don't know how long we'll go for, because it looks like we've got time here. So if anyone needs to leave, I'll send a recording afterward, but hopefully you guys can stay on with us.
Dena, tell me how much time you would prefer at this time left.
I'm more than happy to watch you all night. So you tell us how much time you have. People who need to go, you know, can just go, and I can send the recording out afterward. But
yeah, let's do another 15 minutes or so,
okay.
And then we could take a couple questions if people have them. It's fine.
Alrighty.
Okay. Sorry for my being out of breath. I just ran to the house. So
thank you for running.
This is an accurate electric eraser. It's rechargeable. Again, this is in my kit in Jerry's Artarama. These are fantastic. I really like these. And it's perfect for areas like this. Let me just get a piece of tape here. Now, even with me, my hand is pretty unsteady with using one of these, with having to hold a button and draw. So what I do is I take a piece of tape over it. Then I don't have the worry of holding that button down, which keeps me from doing what I need to do. Then I can hold it out like this. And in this case, you know, you can get even more intensity. Now, how long does the tip last? Probably not very long, but what I keep doing is I keep trimming the top. I just cut the top, the part of it off. They sell a bunch of them with the eraser. So all you got to do is when you run out, just put another one in. So it's fantastic to be able to do that. And then you could, I did this rather quickly here, so you can use your pencil to draw anything in that doesn't look quite right.
Oh, someone asks, I missed that question. How long does the tip last for? I guess on the electric eraser?
Yeah, that's what I think they were saying. It shouldn't be much of a problem. As I said, if it gets to
Oh,
the
you
point
saw
where,
that question. Okay,
yeah,
you did
yeah,
mention.
that's what I
Okay,
was just saying.
I
Yeah, if it ends up getting, you know, worn over and stuff like that, you just take an X-Acto knife and keep trimming it. That's
Okay.
all.
The
Just
second
keep trimming it.
question.
Yes.
Do you ever scratch into the paper to create the lines?
That's one thing I do not do. I know there's a lot of, especially wildlife artists, really love to do that, and some people who do a lot of hair work and stuff like that like to do it. I don't see an issue with it personally. My reason for not doing it is that, you know, once you scratch into the paper, that's it. You know, there's no going back from there. So if I decide I was changing something, or a client was like, "Oh, I don't particularly like the way you handled that spot. Can you change this?" You know, once things are scratched into a surface, you're kind of stuck. So,
That's a good point.
as I said, some people do it, and I really appreciate some of the artists that do it. I mean, there's this fantastic artist. Her name's Dakota. I can't remember the last name, but she's a wildlife artist, and she does a lot of that work with all of her animals and stuff. And I just think it's awesome. She's
It's really handy for like whiskers on cats and
yeah, definitely.
But
I could see that.
But I've used it only a few times, actually, like embossing lines into the paper. And you're right. If you make a mistake, you've got to sharpen your pencil really sharp and then color right there back in the line. So you can do it, but
right. Then it's more work on you. But I mean, yeah, like I said, there's an argument for all different practices. And that's what I even say with my own work. You know, when I'm working with students that come to work with me, you know, they have a lot of they might have a lot of really great ways of doing their processes, and I don't have a problem with that. You know, as I said, I don't care to make anybody me. So there's many different ways to solve a problem in painting, charcoal, whatever it is. It's great that, you know, we can all get to a destination different ways. So I'm just showing you one way that I do it. Have I changed a lot over the years? Yeah, I constantly adapt. I mean, I only started using electric erasers, you know, maybe 5 years ago and stuff. And I thought, you know, wow, that was a big change to things, you know. There's numerous things. I'm always looking for ways to kind of change and make my more about efficiency than anything. You know, how much more work can I get done in my day so that, you know, I'm able to have more to sell, more to put out. You know, I've got so many things to do, so I'm always trying to streamline my process, and that certainly is a desire of mine.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to also do this here because someone was asking about doing more whiskers here.
Also, you mentioned that like the tonality is an important part of creating the drama, right? So by this, so can you elaborate on that? I guess, like, is it the contrast, the high contrast between the light and dark? What exactly would be the goal?
The goal is at first to kind of put a tonality down that you can work in. So, you know, while I'm looking at this person's face and saying, you know, this area here is a good starting point. You know,
Like
does that mean
hit value, you mean? Like kind of
yeah, does that mean it represents everything there? No, absolutely not. Like, in order to get that look that I have here, and I do this even with paint, I'll just pick one area and I'll say, we're gonna start by filling this area in like this, and we're gonna work to highlights, we're gonna work to midtones, to darks from that start. So even just putting, everything down here in a smooth way, his
Mhm.
face obviously is not that smooth. Now I can go through now and put my texture in,
Okay.
and make, first and foremost some eraser marks. I'm kind of pulling away. I don't like using, a lot of people use this sticky eraser like that, like it's a rubber stamp. I
Okay.
never do that kind of, I don't think it's very efficient. I like to kind of drag it, just drag it a little bit, in some of these areas. You can get some tremendous texture, just by pulling out very little. And the great thing about an eraser like this is when you use it to a certain degree and it gets so much charcoal in it, like it's much lighter when you open one of these things up than later on. But as they get more charcoal in them, they're not as efficient. They don't pull as much charcoal away, which is great for areas like this because I'm only looking to pull away maybe 1%, 2% in certain spots. I really want to make sure that I'm not grabbing a lot. So it's kind of nice. It's just like even the tools I'm using, the new brush is as good as the old brush for different things. You're constantly trying to adapt what you have here to your materials. But getting back to here, like I put some tone down here for his face. Let me just do a little more here. I like to blend it in first so that I'm getting kind of the softness of all this beard first. And then I can start pulling away certain hairs. And then we could work our way back
Yeah, that's fantastic.
and trying to get some of these little hairs so you get some more of the texture back. So it's kind of a back and forth when it comes to tonality. It's good to kind of pick a spot, refine that as nice as possible, and then from there you've got a control on how much texture is there. You could bring out the texture in the paper at that point. You could put texture down with erasing or by pencil work or something like that. It's all going to be to your desire at that point, how much you want to incorporate or not. Just do a little bit more work under here, under the nose here before we'll stop.
Amazing. Yeah, like I said, as much time as
Hmm?
whatever time you've got for us is great. It looks
Yeah,
amazing.
absolutely.
It's so fun to see how that rough like beginning, because you can still see half of it,
Yeah.
turns into that really refined, beautiful, definitely is a dramatic face.
Yeah. And the good thing is here, also everybody, you were saying from the very beginning, everybody has a worry about dealing with charcoal, about this kind of out of control, smears easy kind of stuff. Uh, when you're working with your dark areas, that's where you almost push that, like almost go to the point where you're like, all right, I want it to smear. I want it to be really, really soft when I blend it so that I can again control it. So like in here, I'll put a little bit of extra charcoal down and I'll go into my blending mode with it. And you won't see, like, I'm not too concerned about it bleeding a little bit. I don't mind if it bleeds over here and there because it's getting that softness that we see in certain parts of it. Then we can dial it back. We can go back, come back in here, put with our edges a little better. I think he's too small for me to use that. Usually I would tell you that and this is not an art tool. This is just something, we would go and get at a general store, spend $1 for 50 of these things, as opposed to going to an art store and paying $1.50 for one of them that's no different than the kids brand,
Yeah.
They're great tools. I'm actually, if I was doing the hair and stuff, I'd probably be using them more, but these hairs are a lot smaller, so this tool is going to be a little more important.
Mhm.
But this is also another thing too. This tip will wear down on this, and I will use a knife to kind of trim it. Sometimes trim it straight, sometimes even trim a little wedge to it, so it's got a little sharper point. And we can start pulling these. But just remembering that while you're doing it is that the eraser is going to get junked up with charcoal on it. So it will work a little bit. You have to, go over and wipe it off a little bit so that it keeps that amount. And then, I could also bring this tool here. Oops, for some reason it's not working. And then just tidy it up with a nice sharp pencil.
Is the electric eraser actually removing any of the paper itself, or is it just?
No,
Okay.
all just the charcoal.
Because I know
And,
people will use it for like calligraphy work if they're using ink and they need to actually
Right.
erase off like the whole top surface. Okay, so this
Yeah.
is
Yeah,
not.
it can if you like. I mean, I've one time I was helping my daughter fix something on her drawing, and I ended up putting a little bit too much effort into the erasing process, and it will start to strip the paper. So because I mean the charcoal eraser is, or the electric eraser is oscillating, so it's going to be putting a lot more pressure than we would just be doing in our regular shading process, or I'm sorry, erasing process. So it's something you kind of have to watch out for. You can get to that point.
So you just use like a light pressure.
Yeah, I would say just a light pressure. You can usually tell when it's gone as far as it's going to go. When if you're trying to erase something like this, it's just not going to come off. Even with the best erasers, I could try, and still I've got, maybe about 20%, 10%, 20% erasing that's, needs to happen yet, and it's just not
It won't
going
get
to. So
pure white again.
yeah, I won't get it to that point. And even that could be even to say to some degree, even with our racing here in some of these areas, it's not going to pull to complete white. Sometimes it's gonna go as far as it can go, and you can definitely try to accent it and try more and more to erase it, see how far it will go for you. But yeah, just to give you an idea. I mean, again, not a perfect portrait by any means, but I at least want to demonstrate the fact that you can go into something and give it some tone, give it some nice blending, allow it to bleed at times, allow it to get soft. Great detail is a mixture of blending, softness, and texture, and precision. If you just did everything precise and everything, perfect, without any kind of extra blur or tone or anything to it, that's going to help that. Like I've used the analogy with somebody's face. Like I draw this one guy with a lot of my students. If I could find it here, this guy, and he's got stubble, and if you just drew this stubble without any kind of tone around it, it would look like the guy has a bunch of ants on his face. It would look like just not like it's hair that's organically growing. So it's good to kind of keep in mind there's a nice balance of blur and tone and blending and texture and stuff in your work. So Yeah, so I hope that that helps. I mean, I know I moved really, really fast, so if anybody had any kind of questions or anything that's still here, happy to answer them for you. Um,
Amazing. Yeah, that was incredibly helpful. I really need to give charcoal a chance again. I've always wanted to, but this is helpful. We had a really interesting question in the beginning. It's not exactly
okay.
on topic, but maybe
That's
you'll,
fine.
okay. Malka said she just read your article on You Are Not Doing Enough. How do
hmm
you handle imposter syndrome and artist's block?
How do I handle
Or
imposter
maybe you
syndrome and
don't get
artist?
it anymore.
No, you all. It doesn't stop. The thing is, and that's a healthy thing. Because I am not the artist in 2024 that I was in 2014 or 2004 or 1994, when I started. Uh, you are going to constantly, the greatest part about being an artist is that you constantly grow if you want to continue to improve, which I do. I don't want to ever peak where I'm at now. Like I want to be 100 years old and be the best artist I am at that point. When I die, I want to be the best. I don't want to be where I'm at now. I really love where I'm at. I love it. I've grown a lot in, a lifetime now. Just turned 50 last year of drawing and everything, but I want to be better and better. So when you keep ascending to that point, the rules you judge yourself with, that you constantly are assessing yourself are going to change. So years ago, maybe I wanted to be a person that taught artists. Well, I've been now teaching artists for 20 years. That's great. I'm getting into some videos and stuff now. I recorded a video last year, a drawing video of a portrait that I did, and putting that out now. That's a completely different game. There's people who have done this for a while. For me, it's the first time. I've seen some of their videos. I like some of their stuff, but I want to do it my way. So but you got to go out on a limb and you have to execute that idea. And it's been very hard because I've had to learn filming, I've had to learn editing, I've had to do a bunch of stuff that I never knew before. So yeah, I feel like, doing all that, I'm an imposter while I'm doing it until I get it done. And then you get it done, you're like, oh, okay, now I have an art video, I'm ready to do my next one. I'm already thinking about the next one, but this whole process has been a learning process. So if it's just as something as simple as, you're in one part of your business and you're like, gosh, I'm thinking about going into this medium, but to have a completely different clientele, well, you're going to feel, even though you've been in business for years, you're going to feel like an imposter at that point. And until you execute and exercise that goal. But as far as any kind of block or anything, inspiration, I don't have it ever. I am so overwhelmed with all the stuff I want to do that I'm very excited. I think I have maybe 10 lifetimes that I might never run out of any kind of inspiration. I mean, I think that, and it truly happens. The more that you work, the more you get to that place. You start executing one painting, two paintings of an idea, then you're into something else, and you see more and more that you want to do. And with the whole of art history and all the subjects that have been done and I think can be done differently, I'd like to have my take on them. There's never going to be any kind of way of running into any block at all. So I hope that helps.
I love that answer. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Great answer.
Thank you.
All right, let's see. Barbara says this was just fantastic. Thank you so very
Oh,
much.
great. Thank you, Barbara.
Malka said it was amazing. I learned a lot and implemented as I did.
Wonderful.
Oh, Malka drew along
Oh.
with you.
Oh, good. She should share it. I'd love to see what she was able to come
You
up
gonna
with.
share
That's
it,
cool.
Malka? Wait, hold on. I got
I don't know if you can see anything.
Yeah.
Nice work, Malka. Wow, that's great. Love the hair. Love everything going. That's
No,
fantastic.
I'm also terrified of doing portraits, and I learned so much.
Good.
Little ththings that change things immediately.
I've been teaching for 20 years or so, as I said, with students from everywhere. I'm an academic artist, but I am not rigid like the academic world. I'm kind of caught somewhere between the university education world and the academic world. And I truly honestly think it's better to teach somebody some pragmatic skills that they can take immediately into their studio and work and develop them. Some people believe like holding on to students for a decade and making them practice sketches and and sight sizing things and all that's great. It makes great artists, but I don't think it's fulfilling. It wouldn't be fulfilling to me. It'd be great, yeah, you come up with a drawing that took you 6 months to do and it's all perfect, but now what? How do you operate a business with that knowledge and that kind of pace? I just think that teaching people some good skills, like the 1/3 rule. Like I said, you'll never look at somebody again the same way. When you're like 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. Every
Yeah,
time you draw now, you can say,
the center circle was new to me.
right,
Immediately things come into perspective. It was
right.
really good.
Yeah, and the same thing goes when you're doing somebody from the side, when you're doing somebody from a 3/4 view. It's the same breakdown of all that.
Yeah.
And it truly helps. And even if you don't use that, if you're just freehand draw everybody first and then you're using that system to check everybody, that's just as good. I could have easily just done that today as well. I just drawn it the way that I saw it and then just did a kind of check of the proportions. That's fine. I think that it's more important to just get somebody. I'm more about jumping in the water and learning to swim. Like you learn more by testing yourself that way, and it makes you better at doing this as a business because when you're at where I'm at, life is moving at such a fast pace. You have to be ready for everything and anything to keep up with it. So,
Blessing.
Yeah, thank you to you too.
Amazing. All right, we've got a few more compliments. One says you're a great teacher. I learned a lot. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Beth said thank you for inspiring us. Yeah.
Cool.
All right. So anybody got any last questions? Anybody? We're good. All right. All right. Amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was so fantastic.
I had a good time. It was really, really nice.
Time, Eric, and your generosity. Oh, one more question. What other media do you use?
As it stands now, the majority of what I do is either charcoal or oil painting. So for oil painting, I use Lucas 1862 oils and Charvin extra fine oils most of the time. And you could see if you're ever interested in my materials list, it's also on jerrysartarama.com. It has my whole palette, the brushes I use, and everything else. They're great tools, and but I would say the majority of the time I'm probably painting. Probably 40% of the time I'm drawing, probably. But I go back and forth between the two. I learn things in drawing, I take in my painting. I learn things in painting, I bring into my drawing. So it's always a wonderful opportunity to learn in both mediums. And I think they complement each other very well. When I teach my painting students, we start in charcoal because I think it progresses very well into the wet media. So
nice. And if anybody wants to learn more with you, do you do Zoom classes? Do you do in person? Yes. Do you have? Yes. You said you have one recorded class, or
I have. As it stands right now, I teach the majority of the students I have. I teach via classes like this one-on-one. I like the one-on-one approach because it starts a great relationship with somebody. It's a constant dialogue between us for an hour each time. I usually book 10 hours at a time. I have a special on my website, ericarmusic.com, for new students. And basically, another reason I do it as an individual is because most of my students, they're either kids looking to get into art school, or there are people who've been in art school looking to start a career, mid-career people that are retired and just picked up drawing and painting, a few weeks before. I have such a vast amount of people that I teach, but being able to teach them directly is I'll give them a questionnaire in the beginning, ask what are your goals, what are your experiences, what do you want to do in this amount of time, and then we plan a custom class. that goes for, you know, it could be 2 classes a week for 5 weeks, or 1 class a week for 10 weeks, whatever the time is really used, however my student schedules work. But I teach most of them that way. I do have in-person classes I teach as well, where people can come here. And I have also, I do host students here each year from all over the world that comes to work with me, that will come. They'll take a plane flight here. I have a bed and breakfast next door to my house. They'll spend 5 days with me, and we work straight with each other for about 30 hours over 5 days. And it's a total immersion experience where you really dive in. And I have people that want to learn about painting, drawing, or art business, marketing, and everything else. And we go into everything here. So I just had somebody here from Kansas who drove across the United States to study with me. Had somebody earlier from California. I've had students here from China, from the UK, all over around the world. And it's a great opportunity because, you know, online's awesome, and I still give exactly my same kind of information like that, but the immersion experience is a little bit more intense. It could literally change years of your career in any direction you're looking to study. And I've had some great success stories with that, and I truly enjoy it. We get permanent bonds. Students I've worked with so many years ago. I'm helped them get into college, and now I'm dealing with them in their mid careers now, and it's awesome. It's such a rewarding experience to be able to help and help people avoid a lot of the mistakes that I made trying to learn all this stuff, and to try to come up with good, competent artwork, and to sell it, and to build a business the way that I have over the years. I had so many missteps getting there, so I kind of said to myself that, you know, if I ever get somewhere, I want to be able to help anybody else get there easier. And my daughter is a testament to that. My apprentice is the same. I mean, they're just all doing fantastic. And I just want to help make the world a little bit easier for all of us. I mean, we're doing one of the best professions you could possibly do, and I want people to be happy about it, not be frustrated and worried and, you know, doubtful it'll ever go anywhere. I really truly enjoy, you know, making a difference that way, and I'm going to continue to do that. So my next venture, as I said, is video, but I don't have that at this point. It might be a couple more months yet until I have that ready. I've been trying to come up with a couple weeks where there's no commission work or anything else in my studio, and I've been saying that now for about 6 months. I just can't seem to get a break, but I'm getting there.
Yeah, I remember the first course I put together. I had to clear my calendar and like really just focus on it. It's a lot of work. So thank you for doing
Oh,
it.
it's tough.
Yeah, thank you for everything you do.
I mean, I've got this is what I've got in my studio right now. I've got this painting.
Whoa.
I got this one just finished.
Incredible.
I've got restoration work I'm doing over here.
Wow.
I've got just so much, you know, so
wow.
It's when those things are done, I'll get that next.
The restoration work, is that paintings from a church that you're restoring?
This is a private client, and I can't say much about it, but it's a piece that's it's 300 years old, and it's pretty damaged, but I'm going through it pretty well right now. We started a very new relationship together with this person, and it's a chance of a lifetime, you know, to kind of really exercise the kind of work I've been teaching and doing for years. So
amazing.
Very interesting venture.
That feeling touching something.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, right.
I know it was intimidating at first, but then you start realizing, you're like, okay, they were a human being like me, and you know, there may be things in your piece that I don't agree with the way they went about doing it, you know, some of the proportions and stuff based on the time period, the mannerisms and things like that. But you know, it's good. Like once you get into it, it's like touching history. So it's very fascinating. It's just a culmination at this point in my life to be able to have those opportunities. It's just phenomenal. So so a lot of great stuff. Absolutely.
It's amazing. It is a blessing. Yeah. All right. All right. All right. So thank you again. Thank you to everyone who joined us. And
Yes, thank you.
it's
Thank
been
you.
incredible. Really.
Thank you so much, everybody. You have a
Yeah.
wonderful day, and I appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Okay.
certainly keep in touch.
Yes, we
Cheers,
will.
Okay.
cheers to being the best at 100.
The best out of
Amen.
100. Yeah.
Amen.
That's our goal.
Hope you're all the same too. Pray we all get there, right?
Yeah, we'll get there. Thanks God.
All right.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Love you.
everyone.
Thank
Have a good night, good day, wherever you are, and we'll all be in touch. All right. Bye, everyone.
Fantastic. You have a nice day. Take care, Dena.
You too, Eric. Thanks so much.